Hi Anuradha, hi
Just
Afrin.
share
Hi,
this.
good
With
evening.
one
Good
minute,
evening.
I'll just share
Yeah,
the screen. One.
thanks for attending. Thank you for attending. So today, as you all know, we are going to talk about battery recycling and waste management. This workshop is organized and conducting by Nurturing a Project. And our speaker is Gaganpreet Kaur, Ambassador of Green Project Management. Okay, so before we start, I will introduce Nurturing a Project to you in a nutshell. Nurturing a Project, we call it as NAP, our company, focuses on consulting on all major aspects of any project which will make it successful. Okay, so the main goal of our company is to make a project environment friendly, sustainable, and also cost effective with the time bound. This is a proud moment to say that we are three enthusiastic and passionate women working together to achieve our mission in this goal. Okay, so we are located in Masdar City, Abu Dhabi. You can visit our company if you want to get more details. And in the end of the presentation, we'll be providing our website details, also the contact number to contact. So let's see what we are going to discuss today in this workshop. The importance of the battery, waste management, battery recycling, like what is battery recycling, how it's going to help, where you will hand over the batteries, each and everything will be included. And also question and answers, finally the wrap up. Uh, Please note that all the questions can be taken part in the end of the presentation, and also avoid in-depth technical questions as it is a primary workshop. If you want to go in-depth, then we can conduct another workshop according to your needs. So I hope everyone here will enjoy this evening and gain more knowledge. Stay tuned. I'll over
Thank,
Gaganpreet then.
Yeah.
Okay.
thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the wonderful introduction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. And we are very proud to be sharing this information with you because that is our main purpose of sharing knowledge. So we are happy that we are able to do it specially for you. So, what we are going to talk today is about a friend which we use every day, our battery. Battery is a very important part of our life. So, we want to call it as a friend. So, whenever we are seeing a small kid, a battery is a part of a kid from the time he's born. Battery plays a very important role in a kid's life. You give him a toy, it has a battery. The calculator, the first watch a kid uses has a battery. The clock, the remotes of his different games all have batteries. So battery starts an introduction to a person's life from the very beginning. Then as a teenager, our needs change. We start working on laptops or computers, we start playing playstations, we use more systems of portable music systems, also playstations. All of them have batteries. Even some lights and fans work on battery. So battery is a part of us at every stage. Then we all convert into professional. You are teachers in Shining Star School, or they could be an engineer, they could be a doctor. Any professional we are talking about has battery as a part of his life every day. Whether it's a car which we use, we are using battery. If it's an industry, we use batteries. Also in construction, all the equipments which they use have batteries. And even in oil and gas industry, which works on oil and gas, also uses battery for their equipments. So we can say that they're very important part of our lives. What we want to make here is that there's a big list of things where we use this battery. Even many medical equipments, your BP operators, your blood pressure, your sugar, your temperature, all these, your hearing aid, your radios, even many vehicles, your golf cart, there are special cars which are on now batteries. We also talk about the scooters on batteries, the laptop which I'm using, the mobile phone. So we can't get rid of this battery. So we call it as a friend who sacrifices himself from the beginning to the end. Now, also in satellite projects or remote relay stations, spacecraft, everywhere you will see some form of a battery is used. What we want to highlight here is we want to see how a battery friend looks like. It can be as small as a coin, or it can be as simple as the batteries which we use in our daily life. So we have some sample batteries. This is a form of a coin which we have. Then we have these batteries as well. When we want to be more professional, we can say that each laptop which we use has a battery, the mobile phone have a battery, and we spoke about batteries which are used in industries. All of them work on the same principle and made up of basically the same metal or similar metals. What we need to understand here is how the battery works, how it helps us. You are all engineering teachers, science teachers from school. So, what we need to understand here is that when we say technical language, we say that the battery converts chemical energy into electrical energy. This is a simple term which we use by means of electrochemical oxidation reduction, which is called redox reaction. Even if a layman, when he will hear this statement, a question will trigger in his mind that that means there is something chemical change happening when we are using a battery. So that's a warning. So what we need to understand that when we have a battery, it has two nodes, a negative and a positive. When we are not using a battery, nothing happens. But when we connect a wire on the two ends of the battery, we see that a circuit is formed and flow of electron happens inside this battery, because of which the chemicals are produced which converts it into electrical energy. When we are not using the battery, no, nothing happens. So that is why sometimes we are able to store batteries for very long period of time, because when the circuit is not complete, then the energy is not used. But please remember, every time the energy is still there, some form of energy is inside the battery which can be used whenever we want. So now we want to understand how a battery dies. As we understand that it works on negative and positive sides of the battery. So what happens is, this is a battery. So whenever the positive side and the negative side, when we connect them, there is some electrons which start moving, because of which it becomes neutral, and then charge is created, which gives us our energy or the electric energy, or we start using the battery. But there is a limit up to which it can convert. After some time, the tendency to work on those charges finishes. When the tendency finishes, we say the battery dies. So there's a limit up to which a battery can convert or prepare, do a chemical reaction. So after that, a battery dies. Now what next? That is our concern. We have been using a battery. So normally what I would do is I will just take this battery and put it in my waste bin. This is the biggest mistake we do. You, every individual or a person does, because we think it's just a small battery. We need to understand here that battery is a very important part of our life. We can't say that I will stop using what battery. We cannot take it out from our human life. What we need to understand is that this simple battery which we use is made up of heavy metals. And when I talk about metals, I'm talking about metals as cadmium, as copper, or lead, or mercury, or zinc. These are the kind of metals which we are talking about. And we need to understand that these metals are non renewable, which means that there is a limit of which we have them on our earth. We don't have unlimited amount of copper or lead, and they are not available everywhere easily. There are particular mines, areas which we call as mines, where we find these metals. So we have to go there, extract those metals, which is called mining, and then make it workable, because the raw material which we find of this copper is not the form in which I can use it. We need to extract it, we need to treat it or make it usable, and then we use it in a battery. So whenever I say a battery dies, we're actually degrading all these kind of metals which we took very big pain in getting. So batteries can be classified into primary non-rechargeable batteries, which an example is this battery, or the secondary, which is rechargeable. The ones which we use in our laptop, on our mobiles, or even in market, there are some rechargeable batteries available. Both of these batteries are made up of some or the other kind of metals. We are not saying which is good or which is bad. Whenever any one of these batteries dies, even the rechargeable batteries have a life. You can't use a laptop battery forever and ever. It dies after some particular time. So we know that it is made up of some kind of metal. So we need to dispose that metal up. That is my concern. So many metals have evolved. Means in the beginning, maybe 10 years back, some other metals were used in making the battery. Science keep evolving, new researchers come up, but ultimately, whatever battery we use is made up of some kind of metal. Now, when this battery dies, what we need to do is we need to waste it, dispose it. Waste management means any kind of waste, whether it is your paper waste, your plastic, your maybe glass, or your kitchen waste, has to be disposed of in a proper manner. When we say management means any kind of waste has to be collected, it has to be transported to a particular place where it is processed and then disposed of in a manner that it is environmental friendly and sustainable. That is the main purpose of doing waste management. So the goal of waste management is that the waste which we produce should have not much negative impact on our human health and on environment. So some of the waste which we have, like few weeks back, we did a workshop on kitchen waste. So that we don't do recycle, we call it as composting. Okay, we have a proper way of composting that waste. When we talk about maybe any other metals, we then landfill it, means we can throw it off, we can't put it to use. Some of the waste we burn it, which will not produce gas, sorry, or harmful gases, we incineration or we dig it under the earth. But some of the waste, batteries is one of that example, with which we can either compose, nor landfill or incineration. What we do is we try to recycle it. This is one method of waste management. But what we want to highlight here is when I'm talking about batteries, I'm talking about some hazardous material. It is what does a hazard material means? Any effect which can have on physical or chemical on a human life, on a property, on an environment. That kind of waste is called hazard waste. And the batteries which we use, as we discussed before, are made up of different metals. They are all, so it is covered under hazardous waste material management. So we have to be extra cautious when we are handling waste batteries, because if they are not properly managed, many big accidents can happen and have also happened in the past at many waste management centers. So another question which comes to everybody's minds is, are all these batteries hazardous? Even this is hazardous, or the big one is hazardous? So the answer is that any battery which is made up of those toxic metals which we discussed before, mercury, cadmium, lead, nickel, are hazardous to health and environment. There are some batteries which are not made up of these metals and are called alkaline. They are not hazardous, but what happens is it is very difficult for a common man to classify which is hazardous battery and which is not hazardous battery. So some company or a country regulations, they classify all battery into hazardous for the convenience of any negligence which can happen. We may teach you, but we would like to cautious you here that whenever we are handling these hazardous waste material, there are certain rules and regulations to be followed. So if we are in India, or if we are in Europe, or we are in US, or we are in UAE, every country has a particular kind of method or way of handling these hazardous material. Similarly, all companies have a different way of handling these hazardous materials because they don't want everybody to handle these material which is harmful to us. So what happens when a battery dies? When a battery dies, it becomes a waste battery. We put it into the trash, and then from the trash it goes into the landfill, where it keeps lying for many years together or months together, and it starts decomposing, means it starts breaking down. It doesn't decompose, but the battery starts decomposing. So when it decomposes or breaks down, many toxic metal or compounds are exposed. Okay, what have you must have seen somewhere these kind of batteries lying around. Okay, people throw it around. So after some time, reaction happens with air and water, and then the metal starts reacting. As a result, it contaminates the environment. So it releases some gases, so in which it contaminates the environment. As a result, the air gets polluted and the water gets impacted also. So what happens is this air and water, when it gets polluted, it has a direct impact on a mankind and also on the wildlife. The wild animals, both the water animals or the non-land animals depend a lot on the water which is available to them in seas or rivers or what. So if that gets contaminated, it's a threat to their lives. Also, we need to understand that if these metals are incinerated, means if they are either buried or if they are burnt, then they release a very toxic gases which can become spread in our air. Also, sometimes when the ashes which are produced, some of the gases would be stuck in those ashes and it will be spread around. So this is very harmful for us if we leave them unattended. So, what else? We have been saying that battery waste is harmful to us. This is a very big misconception. This battery, small battery, it's not waste when it's not a harm to my environment or our environment after it dies. It is a harm to us from the beginning. It has environmental repercussions from the time it came into existence. Because to make this battery, I need metals. So we do mining of raw materials, and then production takes place, which is again a very difficult process. This is distributed through sea, air, roads to different parts of the world. It reaches our shops, it reaches our bakala, and then it is put to use and it comes to end of life. Now, these two things, the beginning and the end, are very important for us. So, mining of raw material is a very big process. You may say that in Africa or very extreme weather conditions, the people go with great difficulty, they're able to extract the metal, or when they're extracting, the air and the water pollution takes place around that area. The wildlife gets impacted around that area. So, the global warming happens because of this. And then we produce that battery, we distribute it. Again, it used fossil fuels in production and distribution. And but what happens is we have made so much of effort, but when this battery dies, I put it in the dustbin. So that is the biggest mistake we are doing. So if I can use the metal in some way, then at least I'm reducing some impact on the mining, because the end of the life of one battery can be a beginning of a new life or new battery. This is where our role will come into existence. So the caution here is, again, we would try to handle you that whenever I'm disposing this battery, which is hazardous material, I need to take care. I cannot mix it with the non-hazardous material. Maybe I have a pen or maybe I have a paper. So we should try to keep them separate. And many companies have, or many government regulations are there. Even the batteries which we use in car, in some part of the world, you must have seen that even those batteries, the car-based batteries, are lying together with the normal waste. Now it is improving because government of every country is becoming very stringent about the rules of waste management of batteries. But definitely it has got many hazardous impact. That is why we have to take special care in disposing of these batteries. As you know, again, we are discussing because it has metals inside this, which are of hazardous properties, which can lead to fire and explosion. Suppose I leave this battery, I think it's died, but there is still some chemicals inside this, there is still some metals inside it. If it is exposed to a paper in the garbage, there are chances of fire and explosions happening. So we have to try to avoid to do this as much as possible. The biggest threat, the biggest harmful battery is a laptop battery. The science has evolved, and now we have a battery which is made up of lithium. It is very good, it is very fast, it can charge very fast, it can be used for a longer period of time. But in spite of having many advantages, the biggest advantages of this battery, the lithium battery, which we use in our mobile phones and in our laptops, are the biggest threat. And many cases have happened where there has been very numerous fires because of these particular batteries. You can Google and see, and you can show your students some case studies also where this has happened. So we have to be very extra cautious when we are disposing of these batteries. So, what we can do, how responsible can we be? The first thing should be when I am disposing of any batteries, even if in my house or in school or in a hospital or in a company, I should segregate it with my non hazardous rubbish. Non hazardous rubbish includes the plastic, the paper, the metal, the glass, okay, even the kitchen waste. They are all non hazardous waste. We should differentiate it, and then within the batteries also we can try to segregate them if we have the capability. We all know, if we will read carefully, all these batteries are clearly written what kind of metals are used in making them. So when you become an expert, you know how to segregate them as well. Then we recycle them, and we'll learn a little bit more about recycling in the next few slides. It is very important for you, even if you're in a school or in a hospital or in a company or in a home, to assign one person with the duty of doing it. So that is person is in charge of, because this is a hazardous material. If not handled properly, can cause problems also. So I remember when I was kid, when I would change the battery of a clock, mom will say, go and wash your hands. The reason is because when I'm handling this battery, there are a lot of chemicals involved in this. So we have to be extra cautious in handling these batteries. And also, when you're giving this battery to somebody who's becoming your waste carrier, when you employ somebody as a waste carrier, you have the right to ask for the permit. Does he have the right to handle hazardous material issued by, it can be in the form of a license, of a certificate issued by an environmental agencies. Also, whenever you are giving a hazardous material to any party, you should have signed the consignment. I'm giving these many batteries because it belonged to you. Also, it is my duty, when I'm even giving that, to write it on the box, this waste is hazardous. When you travel abroad, if you have something breakable in your bags, you ask the person sitting in the airport counter that this has some breakable. So they will write handle with care. So you make sure that it is notice put. Similarly, is our duty when we are disposing of these batteries, we should write a note on this. This waste is hazardous. These are our small responsibilities which we can do. So when we said here battery recycling again means that you know that this battery is using many metals and many important metals which has required a long process of extracting. So if we try to recycle them, which means that we are able to extract the metals, valuable metals with which this battery is made, and we can use this metal for making either a new battery or a new product, anything else. So when I will recycle it, there are many big companies who do it. They will take out copper from here, they will take out zinc from here, and they can either use it to make a new battery or maybe some other thing using copper. So at least they don't have to go back to again your mining process. So why we want to use, what we mean by battery recycling is, we don't want it to be a material waste. Battery waste is not same as a material waste. Whenever we are recycling it, we have to comply with the environmental, the health benefits, which are governed by the rules and regulations. If we take these small measures, we will be able to conserve our natural resources, we'll be able to reduce the green gas emission which is there, or we will be able to release less amount of toxic chemicals in the environment. And our environment, our habitat would be a better place to live in. So we're not harming it more. So it is very important to do a better, proper battery recycling to protect our environmental and making it sustainable, because we have limited resources on our earth. We have to survive within these resources. So if we use all our resources today, we'll have nothing left for our future. So of course, governments, the businesses means the schools, the colleges, the universities, the companies, the EDNOC, every big company, even in contracting companies, engineering companies, are themselves responsible for disposing or recycling their batteries properly. If we work together properly, we will be able to create a better future for our generations. What we want to highlight here is there are many benefits of recycling batteries. The first and the foremost being we are able to conserve the non-renewable resources. That is what we have been highlighting. Like the non-renewable resources are these metals, which we have limited in our earth. So if we are able to recycle, means we are able to reuse it. Once we are able to do that, we are creating less pollution and there will be less landfill. So the solid waste is a landfill. So when you go to any garbage site you see, or whenever you travel from one city to the other city, you see big garbage chunks are there in outskirts of the cities. They are called the landfills. So if we properly dispose them off, the solid waste there would be less. Also, it saves energy because every battery recycling, when we do, it saves energy because you are not extracting more metals. And at the end, the most important is that it creates new job. Recycling process itself gives opportunity to new people to work. So these are the benefits of recycling. Now, what happens once we recycle these batteries? Again, we will not go into the technical detail, but we'll just see, understand the process. We collect the batteries and we give it to the recycling centers, where what they do is they crush these batteries, then they get those metals out of these batteries, they sort them out, they sieve it because they have a process of separating different metals, and then they extract the metals from there, and which is again reusable for other products to be made. So, four things which we want to highlight here is that first, again and again, we are highlighting that if we will not properly handle it, it will have an environmental impact, means water and air pollution. It will have a health impact, which means it will have a negative impact on our health. Also, at the same time, we want to highlight you is we know the impacts, but believe me, it's not a difficult thing to do. Recycling is a very easy step, and if we will do this, we will be able to save many of the renewable resources. If we get a chance, always we should try to use rechargeable batteries, which generally consume less resources. They are more expensive, but they use less of these metals, and though they cost more, but they can be used for more number of times. Why we are learning here? We want to give a message to the next generation that we have only one planet. So whenever we have one planet means we can't get more metals, we can't get more materials, more trees, more water, more land, or more metals like copper, silver, or zinc from anywhere else. Earth is going to give us with that today and from hundreds years from now. So we have to use these resources very carefully. We have to consume these resources very carefully. So as of 2022, last year, we have used in 1 year 1.6 planet worth of resources, which means that if we had to spend one planet worth of resources, we have used 60% more. For the earth to sustain for many more years to come, there is a budget of resources to be used each year. But what has happened is because of our lifestyles, because of the consumption of renewable resources, non-renewable resources, we are using more than what is required. So what happens is, if we go in this trend, soon we would be using 2 planets worth of resources in each year. In 22, we are using 1.6 planets. So that means by August, when we reach, we are starting to use the next year's resources. So we have allocation of resources for each year. So when you work on a budget, or when you are teachers, you work on a syllabus for a year. So generally you want to do that much syllabus in that year. So when a student goes to the next year, we have a budget or a course, we say, for the next year. You would not try to finish it everything early. Similarly, is for resources. This is a budget of resources for each year which we have to use. But when we start overusing them, what we are doing is we are stealing resources from the future years. So this way, this is a very big growing problem. So as we said, we are using more 1.6 times of planet. So when you will talk about environment, one of a very important day related to environment is Earth Overshoot Day. the day you finish using the resources for that particular year. In 2014, it was August 19. In 15, it came to 13. In 16, it came to 8. Now in 22, it has come to July 28. So if we don't, this is the Earth Overshoot Day. So going at this rate, this year 23, the Earth overshoot rate would come to maybe not at least till July 24th or 25th. Minimum, I'm saying, if we become sustainable. That means another few years, and by April and March, we would have used all the resources. So there's a limited resources which we have. So we need to conserve it or recycle it. And this is one way of working, taking a small step towards it. So how we can help as an individual is wherever we are living, we can check which are the recycling services. Many stores are working as a recycling sector. In UAE, you can go to IKEA, you can go to Ace, and maybe even Emax's. When you go there, you will see a boxes kept for putting the batteries. So they are just collection center. Then they give it to the places or the factories which will be actually recycling them. The process of recycling happens. So what we want to tell you is these batteries are very harmful. So don't, whenever you are even giving it for recycling, don't just throw it with them. You can cover the ends with tape so that they are not exposed to leak or fire. So that will prevent from any calamity to happen, any casualty to happen, any fire to take place. Also, when you're disposing it down, make sure that you are segregating them and putting it in a box which is non-conductive, not in a metal box. Try to use a plastic or a cardboard box to collect them, because you won't go and dispose of one battery every time. So you would be collecting whether it is at a school or at a home or at an office. So we want to store them. These are small steps which we can take, and then we can share it. Also, we will share our mobile numbers and an email address. You can contact us. We can collect the batteries and we can hand it over to the purpose. Either you can go to any of those centers physically, or you can get in touch with us. The fact is that our lifestyle is such that we use batteries. Several billion tons of new batteries are produced every year and sold, and the same number of batteries are disposed every year. So even if we try to recycle 60 to 70% of those batteries, you would see that how much energy and how much recycling we can do of the metals which are there. All the nations have stringent regulations for battery disposable now. But because of some law enforcing deficiencies or ignorance by some companies, especially in developing and underdeveloped countries, we are still lagging behind. But the good news is that in the developed countries, 90% of the rechargeable batteries are recycled. So we can work towards it. It is not something which we cannot achieve. So this is about our presentation today. If you have any further questions, any further queries, you can get in touch with us. Subha, can you talk over, please?
Sure. Good evening, all. I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to Gaganpreet. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today, and thank you for listening to our presentation. What we'll learn today: if we will recycle the present, we will save the future, and the best gift we can give it to our next generation. Next, we will move to question and answer. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask.
I am so pleased to hear this, ma'am. I had no such information that it's so harmful.
Yes,
Means
yes. What is
all
the
these
concern? Yeah.
days, I have never ever taken the care, and
Mhm.
now I feel so guilty that I have been discarding the batteries so casually.
Yeah, so see, with this battery small, we think
Yeah,
how much harm. You don't want to give it in the house. Say, chalo pheko. This is our attitude.
correct. Yeah.
But
Never realized that it is going to be so harmful for the
yes,
environment in general.
in general, and please,
Sorry.
it will emit gases. It can be harmful if you
Correct.
it will go to the dustbin. It can catch fire. So I'm just giving an example. Plus, to make this battery, there's so much of metal used, and we are just throwing it off, right?
Yes, yes, ma'am. And such a lovely session and such a useful thing but so little is known. So I really, really
Yeah.
appreciate the efforts made by you. And one thing I can
Thank you so
promise
much.
you is, henceforth, whenever I discard it, I will take utmost care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
And
so
what
much,
we would
ma'am.
request is, give us an opportunity. We would like to present more practically to the school students. Actually, so we are making an effort. We are in touch with Amurur School also. So anytime, but yes, we can do that. Yeah. Subha, you can continue. Any, please, we'll share a survey link for you. Please give your feedbacks on that, please.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure.
Subha, you can
Thank
continue.
you for such an enthralling session, informative, and really that is something we should all be aware of. Recycling, reducing, everything is, we were aware. But
Yes.
these small, small things, we were not aware. At least I was not aware. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you,
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much.
thank you
Thanks a lot.
so much.
Thank you for your time.
Correct.
Thank you, family. Yeah. So
Thank
Subha,
you
you
for the session, ma'am. Really, it's very informative.
thank
I
you.
really learned so many things from today's session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm sure you will spread the message. And
Sure,
if you
sure,
have,
ma'am.
Yeah,
Sure,
we
ma'am.
are there to help you to spread the message as well.
Inshallah, sure.
correct. Okay.
Thank you. So these are our
Good night,
contact
ma'am.
number. You can just contact us. I think you already have our email address and contact numbers, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time on a weekday also. Thanks a lot, ladies.